Scientists estimate you forget about 95% of everything that has ever happened to you. Not blurry, not distorted, gone, completely erased like it never happened at all. That means the vast majority of your life, the conversations, the days, the small, ordinary moments, isn't stored somewhere waiting to be remembered. It was never kept in the first place. And the reason why is stranger than simple memory loss. Most people assume forgetting is a failure, a weak memory, a brain that couldn't hold on to what mattered. But that's backwards. Your brain isn't failing to remember your life. It's working exactly as designed, and what it's designed to do is throw almost all of it away. Let's start with what memory actually is, because it's not what you think. In the 1960s, psychologist Richard Atkinson and Richard Shiffrin proposed a model that still shapes how scientists understand memory today. Information first enters something called sensory memory, and it lasts less than a second. Almost none of it survives. What does survive moves into short-term memory, which holds maybe 7 items for less than a minute, unless something happens to move it further. That something is called consolidation, and it's the only reason any memory becomes permanent at all. Without it, every single experience you've ever had would vanish within seconds of it ending. So the real question isn't why do you forget, it's why does anything get remembered at all? In 2000, neuroscientists Eric Kandel and his colleagues at Columbia University ran experiments on sea slugs, of all things, and found something that would later apply directly to humans. Memories aren't stored as static files. They're stored as physical changes in the connections between neurons, called synapses. Every memory you have is a specific pattern of strengthened connections. And here's the problem. Your brain has roughly 86 billion neurons and trillions of synaptic connections. Strengthening all of them permanently for every single thing that ever happens to you would require more energy and physical space than your skull could ever hold. Kandel's research helped confirm what scientists had suspected for decades. Your brain isn't built to save everything. It's built to be selective, brutally selective, because the alternative is a brain that physically cannot function. But here's what's genuinely strange. In 2017, a team led by neuroscientist Blake Richards at the University of Toronto published a paper with a title that sounds almost backwards: The Persistence and Transience of Memory. Their argument was that forgetting isn't a bug in your brain's design. It's a feature your brain evolved on purpose. Richards found that mice with artificially boosted memory retention didn't perform better on complex tasks. They performed worse. Their brains were so cluttered with outdated, irrelevant information that it interfered with their ability to adapt to new situations. Forgetting, it turned out, was what let their brains stay flexible. Think about what that means for you. If you remembered every single parking spot you've ever used, every meal, every mildly unpleasant conversation with a stranger in exact detail, your brain would be so overloaded with irrelevant data that finding the information that actually matters where your car is right now would become harder, not easier. Richards' research suggests your brain is constantly making a calculation you're never aware of. Is this worth keeping, or is it noise? And the vast majority of what happens to you, it decides, is noise. And it turns out your brain doesn't even wait for daytime to start deleting things. It does most of the work while you're unconscious. In 2003, neuroscientist Giulio Tononi at the University of Wisconsin proposed something called the synaptic homeostasis hypothesis, and it reframed what sleep is actually for. During the day, your brain strengthens synaptic connections almost indiscriminately. Every sight, every sound, every passing thought leaves some trace. If that process ran unchecked forever, your brain's synapses would eventually become saturated, unable to strengthen anything new. Tononi found that deep sleep exists specifically to reverse this. While you sleep, your brain systematically weakens the vast majority of the day's new connections, pruning away the noise and preserving only the small fraction that got flagged as significant. Later research using fruit flies and mice confirmed the mechanism at a cellular level. Scientists could physically watch synapses shrink during deep sleep, like a gardener cutting back overgrowth so the strong branches can keep growing. Which means every single night while you lie there unconscious, your brain is quietly deciding what parts of that day get to survive into your permanent memory, and erasing the rest without asking your permission. So what actually determines whether something survives? Emotion is the first major factor. In the 1990s, psychologist James McGaugh discovered that the amygdala, the brain's emotional processing center, works directly with the hippocampus during memory formation. When something is emotionally intense, frightening, humiliating, thrilling, your amygdala essentially flags the moment as important and floods it with stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. Those hormones strengthen the consolidation process. This is why you can remember exactly where you were during a car accident, or an argument that humiliated you, but you cannot remember what you had for lunch on any random Tuesday. Your brain isn't randomly forgetting the lunch. It's making a decision correctly that the lunch didn't matter, and the accident might matter for your survival later. Repetition is the second factor, and it works completely differently. Every time a memory gets recalled, discussed, or reactivated, the synaptic connection behind it gets physically reinforced. This is why you can still remember a childhood phone number you haven't dialed in 20 years if you dialed it often enough, but you cannot remember what you wore 3 Wednesdays ago because nothing about that day was ever repeated or revisited. Your brain isn't storing your life chronologically. It's storing whatever got emotionally flagged or repeatedly reinforced and deleting everything else by default, every single night. But there's one stretch of your life where this system fails almost completely, and it's the stretch you'd most want back. Ask yourself what you remember from age 4, maybe a birthday, maybe a single afternoon at a pool, a handful of scattered, disconnected images and almost nothing else, out of literally thousands of days you were alive and conscious and forming experiences. This isn't unique to you. Researchers studying what's called childhood amnesia have found that adults typically cannot recall almost anything from before age 3 or 4, and even the years up to age 7 remain unusually sparse compared to every year that follows. For decades, the assumption was that a young child's brain simply wasn't developed enough to form memories at all. But the research doesn't support that. Young children clearly do form memories. They can describe an event from days or weeks earlier if you ask them at the time. What they can't do is keep those memories long-term. Some researchers point to the hippocampus itself, still busy generating new neurons well into early childhood, a process that appears to physically overwrite older connections as it builds new ones. Others point to something even stranger. The idea that you need a stable sense of yourself as a continuous person before an experience can be filed away as something that happened to you specifically, rather than just a passing sensation. Either way, the result is the same. An enormous stretch of your early life, arguably the years when everything about you was being formed for the first time, was recorded onto a system that was actively being demolished and rebuilt in real time. The version of you that experienced all of that is gone, not hidden, not buried, gone. And no amount of trying will bring any of it back. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. This means the version of your past that you carry around isn't your actual past. It's a heavily edited highlight reel, built almost entirely from your most emotionally intense moments and your most repeated routines, assembled while you slept, and unslept it every night since. Missing an entire early chapter, it never even had the architecture to save. The quiet, ordinary 95% of your existence, the version of your life that was actually most of your life, simply isn't in there. You are, at this very moment, walking around with a memory of your own existence that is mathematically inaccurate, missing almost everything that actually happened to you. There's one more layer to this, and it might be the strangest part of all. In 2000, psychologist Elizabeth Loftus, one of the most cited memory researchers alive, demonstrated something that unsettled the entire field. The memories you do keep aren't stored like files in a cabinet, untouched and permanent. Every time you recall a memory, your brain doesn't play back a recording. It rebuilds the memory from scratch, using your current mood, your current beliefs, and information you've picked up since. And then it resaves that rebuilt version as if it were the original. Loftus proved this by showing that false details, and even entire false memories, could be implanted in people simply through suggestive questioning, and the subjects would recall the fabricated events with full emotional confidence, certain they were real. This means the 5% of your life you do remember isn't just incomplete. Every time you replay it, you're quietly rewriting it. The memory you have of your 10th birthday today is not the same memory you had of it 10 years ago, even though it feels exactly as certain, exactly as real. So, what does that leave you with? A brain that discards 95% of your life by design, prunes most of what's left while you sleep, failed to save an entire early chapter of who you were, and then subtly rewrites the remaining fraction every single time you revisit it. The person you believe yourself to have been, the entire narrative of your own life that you carry around as fact, is not a recording. It's closer to a story your brain keeps editing, draft after draft, and presenting to you as the original. Scientists estimate you forget about 95% of everything that has ever happened to you. But maybe that number is the wrong thing to be afraid of. The more unsettling question isn't what you've lost. It's whether the small fraction you think you still have was ever really yours to begin with.